Welcome to the Brag Effect, where we share easy to understand customer service tips from business owners and leaders that will help you get your customers bragging about you in all the right ways. Hi, I'm Mike Wells, and together with my co-host Michelle Adams. Hey Michelle.
Hi Mike.
A big thanks for joining us.
As a recruiter with close to 20 years experience, Dayna is the Nudge Group's Business Director for Digital and Data. With her extensive experience in the recruitment industry, Dayna has encountered virtually every possible scenario in the hiring process. She is hugely passionate about helping candidates reach their career goals and has just herself recently scored an incredible candidate feedback score of over 96. So today we're talking to Dayna about some of the ways that businesses can recruit the right people and how to keep them. Let's chat with Dayna. Hi, Dayna. Thanks so much for joining us today.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
And congratulations on your recent score, 96% feedback from candidates. Well done.
Thank you. Yeah, I was very chuffed with the result.
I can imagine. So what I want to talk to you about first is, on that topic of customer experience that applies to you in HR and recruitment around your own customer service or that you provide to your candidates. And so obviously with that kind of a feedback, you're obviously doing something really well. So talk me through that. What does that look like for you?
Yeah, I think that, the biggest thing for me is just that really open, transparent communication from the get-go. And I think the challenge that we face in recruitment is, unfortunately, the industry as a whole has been kind of tarnished a little bit in terms of some of a lot of bad experiences that candidates have gone through when dealing with sort of recruitment consultants over the years. And I did a quick search the other day on, the top 10 most stressful things in a person's life. And number 5 is actually job loss. And so at the moment, particularly with the pandemic, we are, unfortunately dealing with a lot of people who have lost their jobs for whatever reason. It's not always about us headhunting people, although that is a big portion of our role. But when you're dealing with people who have either lost their jobs or are desperate to find something else, I think having a lot of empathy towards their situation is really important. And just getting back to people, even if they're not the right person for the job that they've applied to, I'm really big on sharing feedback with every single person who applies. And it's difficult, especially when we can sometimes receive, 100 to 200 applications for a job. I think it's still really important to get back to each and every person, because personally myself, I would hate to be sitting there thinking, did they get my resume? What did they think of my resume? And so it's just, again, that communication and making sure that people are in the loop. Second to that, obviously, is when I've engaged with candidates and we are working through the process. Again, just constant communication, letting them know what hiring managers are looking for and what the team culture is like and the types of attributes that these businesses are looking to have within their team, so that they can mention that through their interviews. And again, just providing feedback, if they've been unsuccessful in the process, what they could have done potentially better, or the reasons that they weren't quite right for this particular role. So I think that's probably the biggest reason that candidates have enjoyed working with me, is just that kind of real transparent, open, caring kind of approach to their situations.
The open communication thing, I think, is just so valuable. I'm sure everybody can relate to that, or has had one experience at least where they have, either applied for a role or and just don't hear back. It's crickets, and it's frustrating.
Yeah.
So it's like, do you move on? Do you try keep reaching out, or how many times is a good time to follow up?
I know, right? It is really, really important.
So for businesses that are recruiting for candidates for different roles, what are the advantages that you would say would be using a professional recruiter, as opposed to hiring themselves?
Yeah, I think that recruitment is a very time-consuming process. So I think that if it's not your day job, honestly, there are not enough hours in the day to focus on finding the right talent. And there are so many aspects to recruitment in terms of finding the right person for your team. Obviously, skills are really important. You've got to take into account where the role is now, but possibly where the role is going to evolve to, and what those major kind of skill sets for day one, what do they need to have right now, but then also culture fit. So all of these things, it is a journey in finding those types of areas within a candidate. I think the other big thing, and why a recruiter is a valuable kind of option for businesses, whilst yet we can advertise roles, I think at the moment, particularly in the technical or the developer space, there was something like 18,000 new jobs uploaded on Friday in Sydney alone. So you're obviously trying to compete with a huge competitor base, right? So when you're engaging with a recruiter, our process is certainly going through networks, passive networks, people who may not necessarily be looking at job ads, looking to apply for positions. We can drill down into our networks. We can go into a lot of our own sort of social media and content pieces to really draw attention and get buy-in from people who may not necessarily be applying for positions. So I think all of those efforts certainly is going to be more of a sell, I suppose, to clients when they are looking to hire. And honestly, we spend 9 hours, 10 hours a day trying to find talent for our clients. It's not a flick an ad out and we'll have hundreds of amazing people and we'll pick the top 5 and we'll interview them all. It's just not like that anymore. So needs to go external.
So you're actively looking on other platforms and different ways, reaching out to people in your network, apart from just the ad. So that's
absolutely. So even as our company, the Nudge Group, we're still a fairly early stage recruitment company. All of the consultants have, extensive experience, 15, 20 years plus in the industry. But our company followers has gone from 0 to nearly 15,000 in less than 2 years. So it's kind of a sign of the content that we share, the knowledge that we have in our niche. And I think that speaks volumes. I mean, we've got a really, really solid sort of content marketing strategy in place as well. We have a lot of people engaged in what we're talking about. We don't just sell jobs. We actually give candidates and clients information on recruitment processes and interview tips and how to build resumes and what the market's doing. So I think that because we're constantly sharing advice, people are drawn into our network, which is great.
And as a marketer, I mean, one of the things that you can, would be, I guess, a really good tip for businesses who are recruiting is that, often what you might find is they'll just put a job ad out on what they're looking for. They haven't really thought about, as we would as marketers, thinking about our ideal clients or customers that we want to attract, who's the ideal candidate that you want to attract, and really kind of do that, I guess, candidate journey mapping as we would a customer journey map to really sort of get into the head of your ideal candidate. So, and then that language in your ad would speak to that ideal candidate. Is that right?
Yeah, look, I agree. I mean, I think a big part of attracting anybody is sharing your brand story. I mean, that's something that we are always encouraging our clients to do, get people excited about why you've started your company or why you're embarking on this hire, or what the story is behind the business, and getting that kind of buy-in will instantly kind of attract the people that are on the same level in terms of the motivators. And I think exactly what you said, Michelle, I think it's really important that you're aligning your message to not only your business, but you're also your end customers. I think the problem I see with a lot of job ads that happen in market, and I'm sure there's a lot of frustration from a number of people applying for them, is, example, we're looking for a junior marketer with 5 years experience and all of this experience across all of these technologies. But junior marketer is not going to have all of those things. So I tend to sort of scrap a lot of the must-have in my jobs, and it's more about the client, what's in it for the person who's applying for the job, the types of reasons that you'd want to jump out of bed to work for this company. And I think that that's a far better way to kind of align talent with companies.
And the other thing I wanted to just ask you on that is when you look at businesses that, let's say they've recruited, they've made a decision, they've recruited for a position, often that, the onboarding process, or that how they feel, how someone feels, and most people would be nervous on their first day, wouldn't they? Mm-hmm. So how do you make them feel? How are they welcomed? So is that kind of step one? And then what's their training? What's the whole onboarding process? And then how do you keep them engaged so that they're not headhunted, or that they do feel part of that team?
So obviously onboarding at the moment is remote. So it's really, really important that candidates are still feeling part of the team and part of the business. And I guess what I always recommend is, if you're the type of business that includes, a little merchandise pack on the person's desk on day one, send it to their home, still make them feel like they are part of that team. Make sure they have their technology ready, that they've got all of the, associated apps on their desktop, or whatever they need to be able to communicate effectively with the team. The other big thing I think with onboarding is making sure that you've scheduled face-to-face video meetings with all of the stakeholders that you're going to be interacting with as a part of your role, because it's nice, if you've not met them through the interview process, to kind of see who you're kind of working with, and have a chat with them, understand what their expectations are of you in terms of your role and how they want to work. Do they want to have weekly catch-ups, daily catch-ups, and whatever the case may be? So just feeling like you're constantly being interacted with is really important. I think that we're quite lucky, with the tech that we have available. There's that, you can share screens with each other, you can sit down and sort of, do the cross-check of, this is what we're doing, this is how we navigate through this particular problem or technology, or whatever the case may be. But I think it's also very much then checking in at the end of the week, how was your week? Were there any problems? Is there something else we could be doing? And it's just that constant, regular check-in, at least for the first, I would say, month, to make sure that the person is feeling, valued. They understand their role. They understand, their purpose in the company. Because, if you don't, there's going to be another person swooping in to try and pull them out before you've had the chance to keep them in your company. I actually had a client yesterday say to me, "Oh, we're looking to recruit this role again." I said, "You just filled that." She said, "I know, the person's been here for 2 weeks, and they had previously been going through a recruitment process that was drawn out, and now this company's offered them the job and they've decided to take it." So, 2 weeks, you think you've got somebody, but that's just a sign of what the market's doing. If you're not engaging and keeping these people close, you're going to lose them.
And it's having everything ready before they start too, isn't that's so important? I mean, I can remember many roles over the years where I've rocked up on day one and, haven't had an email address or, company phone, or they're just not ready for you. And it's just this feeling of, I don't belong yet.
Yes, exactly. And that's why I think that's so important. I mean, I know that, a big thing that we do is, as you said, you have your email address ready and send an email before the person's even there, so that they've got a message, oh, day one, look at all these messages welcoming me to the team. And it creates that kind of feeling of, I belong. People are already talking to me and they're excited that I'm here. And I think that it definitely is a really good way to sort of show the value of an employee when they're starting on day one.
Have you got any examples that you can share? I'm putting you on the spot here, of like a company that's done it really well, that onboarding?
Yes, so actually we're working with a company at the moment. They're called Fluent Commerce. So they're again a scaling company here in Australia, and I've recently placed with them sort of a user experience designer with them, and he actually has shared on LinkedIn quite openly his onboarding experience, and it's been fantastic. I mean, he's exactly that. He's had the computer, it's all set up. He's got all of their merch ready to go. He's had some cupcakes ready to share with, well, not with the team anymore, but he's had the constant meetings. He knows where he stands. He knows what the expectations are from day one and what they want him to achieve in the first month. He's met all of the stakeholders, the leadership team. It's just, for him, it's been an experience where he's felt really included and he's felt extremely valued and part of the team. So I think they've nailed it. They've done really well.
And you just mentioned that he shared that on his social media. I mean, that is, we talk about reviews now. Obviously, that's a big part of what we do here at Bragg. But when we're talking about customer reviews quite often, but if you Google a business name, quite often now what's happening is staff reviews are coming up where they've mentioned that brand, on these reviews, so on these recruitment sites like Seek, Indeed, Word of Mouth, all of these other platforms now where staff are talking about a company that your potential customers can then see.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, that's a really big one, isn't it? Like that kind of reaffirms that importance of really looking after the people.
Absolutely. And just to that, I mean, these are a lot of the company review sites these days, because we're tapping into a passive market and candidates may or may not have heard of the organisations that we're representing, because a lot of our clients are startups or scale-up brands. That's the first place they'll go to. Are there reviews? What are people saying about them in market? What are they rated? So it's really important across every single touch point that your dealings with your customers, your staff, your clients is always, at the highest level, because that's how you're going to grow business. That's how you're going to grow networks, is always through, I think the reviews.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, I was talking to a lady this morning, and we were just kind of sharing what each of us did. And she said before she took the job where she is, she actually Googled, reviews for people who worked at this location. And I thought that is so interesting that, we are doing that now way more than
Absolutely.
what we ever had before.
Yeah. So bad review can go a long way.
It sure can. The other thing I wanted to kind of chat about was just, exit interviews. I mean, that's another thing too, that's taking that feedback on board and even just for you as a recruiter, giving feedback to the business that's recruiting about things that they could do better. Feedback from the candidate to the business, and then what's your advice to businesses when it comes to that as well?
Yeah, so I've been involved with quite a number of candidates who have parted ways with employers that I've placed them with, and this may have been after a year or 2 or 3 years, but they were always sort of going through that kind of exit interview kind of process with HR. And I think the big thing to take on board when you are speaking with candidates is, don't be offended if they're coming to you saying that something wasn't quite right within the team or the hiring manager or whatever the case may be, and use it to really improve the function or the communication channel moving forward, so you don't lose staff in that team ongoing. And I can think of a really good example of that where we're all really, really busy at the moment, and we don't have a lot of time to kind of sit down and break down every little piece of work. But there was this one candidate in particular who was constantly receiving, can you do this on the fly through a corridor, rather than it being sit down, this is exactly what I expect from you, and this is the delivery date that I want it. And it turned out that obviously candidate missed certain deadlines because it was always throwing that was on the fly. So that was some really interesting feedback that I was able to share with the HR team, and it wasn't necessarily a reflection of this person's leadership or management or anything like that. She was absolutely amazing, but it just went to show that if you want to get the best out of your people and you want to retain those people long term, you have to invest a little bit of time to give them to give them a bit of structure, because not all of us can work. Can you do this and see you later? So that was something that they really took on board, and they've really changed sort of the way that they're communicating with the team so that they're getting the best from their people. And I think it also, just on that, at the moment, candidates are getting approached by multiple companies, multiple recruiters for a lot of opportunity, because there's a lot of jobs in market at the moment. So I think having the constant check with your staff and that open communication along the way, understanding their drivers, understanding kind of what they want long-term out of their roles within that organisation. If there's salary issues, having those conversations up front, because it's a really good way to avoid these exit interviews. You can retain your people a lot longer if you're having that constant little check-in and making sure that people are happy in what they're doing.
Yeah, that's awesome advice. I love that. I remember hearing a statistic once that was like, when you lose a staff member within the first 12 months, it's like 3 times their annual salary.
It's huge. It's a huge cost.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know the exact numbers, but I think it is a really big cost to the business, because obviously you've invested usually, 3 to 6 months of training into an individual. You've invested a lot of money in terms of your recruitment planning to get that individual. I mean, I think if you go through a recruiter, it is obviously at a cost. It's not a free service. Even if you're advertising directly, you're still, it's still a cost, and it's a very time-consuming process. So if you're losing people in 12 months, it is a huge impact, because then not only are you having to replace that person, it can almost take 3 months to get somebody back in the role, and again another 3 to 6 months to train them up to where they need to be. So it is a bit of a nightmare.
Yes, I hear you. I had a restaurant many, many years ago, and that was just the biggest challenge. It was such a a transient, I guess, people sort of, an industry where people do move around quite a bit. And yeah, we really had to go over and above to create a really good culture where they felt, loyal to the business. So it's creating that loyalty when whether it's better as in, higher, salaries or whatever it might be comes along, that they just don't entertain it.
Yeah, I think it's important. I mean, it's almost like creating a little family, isn't it? You don't really want to leave them. Well, some people do, but I wouldn't want to leave mine. But you've got to get the buy-in.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, there's been some great tips in there. Thanks so much, Dayna, for sharing your amazing advice. Thank you for your time today.
No problems at all. Thanks for having me.
Pleasure.
See you.
Bye.
Bye.
The Brag Effect is brought to you by Brag Reviews, the review management software that helps businesses improve their reputations, one review at a time. Check it out at bragreviews.com.